Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central here in Kent, Ohio with your daily dose. This is your host, Doc Ock, coming at you with your daily dose of Black Facts. And we don't come with just some little piddling things about who shot John over here and who did this over there. We come with actual real life stories. So let's go ahead and get started without any further ado. But before we do that, we always have to ask you to participate in the whole affair. And what we'd like you to do is to go ahead and subscribe to the Tubular Black Facts channel right here on YouTube. You can do it. I know you can. You can do it. You can do it. I know you can. So go ahead, show us you're a fan, join right now. The button is right below, or maybe it's above. Look around on your screen somewhere, find that button, hit it a lick one time right quick. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and let me share some words of wisdom with you from the mind of Dr. Edward W. Crosby, the father of Black History Month. And oh, my goodness. Okay, excuse me 1 second here. Hello, Ro.
Hey.
I am right in the middle of a live stream. Can I call you back? Okay, great. Thanks. All right, so now where was I at? Oh, sharing some words of wisdom with you from the mind of Dr. Crosby. And the words of wisdom I want to share with you right now are this. As Dr. Crosby liked to say very often, he loved to play with words. He loved to play with language. We've talked about this before. And so he always liked to say that his initials, EWC, as told to him by his employees, stood for Eternal Work Creator. And he just loved that little acronym that they had made out of his name, Eternal Work Creator. We tried to put that on his little niche over there in the military cemetery, but you know, the military, the U.S. Army, they have rules and regulations and all kinds of things, and they would not quite let us do that. So we weren't able to put it on there, but it certainly was something that we thought about. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and read our poem for the evening, which comes right out of this book right here. The book being Voice of Freedom, about Fannie Lou Hamer. Let's see what we can find in here about Fannie Lou Hamer. And we're actually going back. We started in the middle, but we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of this book because it is done kind of chronologically. And it may have more meaning to you if we read them chronologically. So we're going to read them chronologically. First poem up is entitled Sunflower County, Mississippi. And let's put on our glasses so we can see real good here. Minister Malcolm X once called me the country's #1 freedom-fighting woman. But nothing about my beginnings would make you think anyone beyond these parts would ever hear my name. Mississippi. I was born here, the youngest of 20 children. My folks, James and Luella Townsend, were sharecroppers in Sunflower County in the Delta, where the soil was as rich as black folks was po, where cotton was king and Jim Crow was the law. When I was born on October 6, 1917, the plantation owner paid my mother $50 for producing a future field hand. The money helped my family through the winter. Child, I am proof that the Delta that the Delta birthed the blues. Wow, I did not realize that there were that many children in her family. 20 children plus 2 adults. I mean, her mother and father had to feed 22 people every single day. Now, you can quite well imagine that had to be a chore. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and read the foreword to this book. It's very short, very brief, so we're going to read a little bit more than that. But we're going to start with the foreword. And the book is, again, it's called Oh, Freedom. And we felt that the book went right along with the, this book went right along with the book of poetry. We felt the two of them went together real well. So let's see what we can see in this book right here as we begin our slideshow for the evening, if we can get it to work. And there it goes. It is working today. Great. Boom, shakalaka. And there we go. Okay. Foreword by Rosa Parks. On December 1st, 1955, when I was arrested for refusing to give up my seat to a white man on a Montgomery, Alabama bus, I became a part of history. I joined thousands of others who worked and sacrificed because they were committed to obtaining freedom. They were ministers, students, teachers, domestic workers, laborers, professionals, and people of all colors who became part of what is known as the modern civil rights movement. We didn't know it was a movement back then with important dates and famous people to remember. We only knew we were tired. We were sick and tired of being sick and tired of segregation and Jim Crow and all the rest. We were tired of eating our lunch outside while white people sat at the counter, tired of separate but unequal schools, tired of not being able to vote or to honestly, openly speak our minds. And more than anything, we were tired of living in fear. How do you capture the feeling of a movement that inspired so many people to action and touched so many lives? How do you then convey that feeling to children? That's a crucial question right there. Most books that talk about the civil rights movement focus on the key events and the important people. But Oh, Freedom is different. It's a powerful and intensely personal oral history of ordinary people. And it is unique because the voices of the children themselves can be heard as they respond to their elders' moving descriptions of segregation, protest marches, and tragic assassinations. It's a book that children can relate to because it is the children who ask the questions. The answers help them understand that history isn't just something that happens to other people, but a part of the experience of their families, their neighbors, and ultimately themselves. I can't think of anything more important to teach young people today than this, that ordinary people working together can change history. They can look for a new Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks or Malcolm X to tell them how to make a difference, but they can also look in the mirror. That's the message of this book. To live is to have stories. In sharing them, we give a part of ourselves, a part of our lives to others. That's what makes Oh, Freedom so special. Read it with your children. Answer their questions. Tell them your own stories. And together, stand up against injustice wherever it may occur in the world. And that is exactly how Dr. Crosby felt as well. And in honoring him this particular month, this month of his birth, yesterday having been his 89th birthday, we felt that we needed to try to make history live. We needed to bring it alive. We needed to infuse life into the history that we wanted to relate to the children. And so this book here seemed like a good bet, and so far, so good. So there's some introductory things here that we could read. And let me see if I'm going to read that or not, because I know this will take about a week. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to skip that part right there. I'm going to come back to that next week. So for right now, we're going to read let's see. Yeah, did we read this one? No, did we read this one already? No, we didn't read this one yet. So we're going to read this one right here. This is the story of Carrion Gray with Charles Epps. Carrion. My name is Carrion, and I will be interviewing Mr. Charles Epps. Where did you grow up, Mr. Epps? Carrion, or Charles, in a small town, Windsor, North Carolina. Carrion, was there segregation when you were growing up? Charles, oh yes, there was. The schools were segregated and the restrooms at the courthouse were segregated, white and black. If I wanted to use the bathroom, I would have to use the colored restroom. And in the movie theaters, we sat upstairs in what they called the crow's nest, while the white kids sat downstairs. Carrion, is it true that you could not go into restaurants with white people back then? Charles, that's correct. I remember this little place near the bus station that sold the best hot dogs I ever ate. If you were a white person, you could just go in, sit down, and enjoy your hot dog. But if you were black, you had to get back. You had to go around the back, as a matter of fact. And when you got all the way around the back, there was a little hole in the wall, about 12 inches by 12 inches. And you put your money through the opening, and they would pass you a hot dog through the hole. Now, if that sounds familiar, you might have seen that on TV when they go to buy the drugs, and they knock on the door, they open up a little hole, ask them what they want, and when they tell them, they pass a little money through the hole, and they pass the drugs back through the hole. It sounds a lot like that, because it's almost like it was illegal, or you were doing something in secret. You had to hide the fact that these people got a hot dog just like the white folks did up front. Carrion, what was going through your head when you saw segregation happening to you like that? Charles, you felt something bad when you saw folks inside the restaurant sitting down eating all together in a family, and you had to have the food pushed through a little opening. It was very dehumanizing. Carrion, what do you mean dehumanizing? I mean that you are treated as if you somehow were less than human. You weren't treated like a decent person. Is it like making a person into an object the way they sold slaves? Charles, absolutely. And when you're treated like that, you begin to question your worth as a human being. But I always remember what Martin Luther King said, that who you are should be determined not by how you look, but by what you stand for. I'm sorry you were ever treated that way. This concludes my interview with Charles Epps. Now, an addendum to what he's talking about there is that most people, when we think of segregation, we only think of the South. Oh, this happened down below the Mason-Dixon line. In other words, we try to other it, or say it happened, we try to localize it to a certain area, a certain part of the United States, that the whole country wasn't this way, just certain parts of the country this way. No, that's not true. As a matter of fact, the whole bloody country was this way, because these kind of things were happening like they were in the South. They were happening in the North. They weren't happening maybe to the same exact degree, but the sitting in the colored balcony to watch the movie, oh yeah, that's something that happened up here. Going to Polsky's, downtown Akron and not being able to sit in the same area where the white folks were, that's real. Living in Kent as a college student, not being able to eat at any restaurant in Kent, that was real. Having to live in segregated housing in Kent if you were a student, as opposed to living in the dormitory like the other students lived, and was actually were required by to some extent to live, that was also a fact. These are things that happened here too, and all the way through the 60s. It wasn't just way back when in the 1870s. We're talking about within my lifetime. And so I don't remember experiencing all of those different anomalies, but I remember experiencing some of them. But by the time I experienced them, they were becoming more subtle, more nuanced, more undercover, less in your face. So you could go in a restaurant to eat, but maybe the waitress would just keep walking by your table until you finally started making some noise. And then maybe you might be able to get her to come over to your table. That was a sign that you didn't, quote unquote, belong there. Or going into a biology class. This is in the 1980s at Kent State. Going into a biology class and having the professor ignore your arm when you put your arm up in the air to ask a question. And instead of answering your question, you leave your arm up there for minutes. You know, the blood is not really flowing properly all the way up to your hand and everything. Your fingers are starting to tingle. You got your hand up there so long, and your question still hasn't been recognized that you even have a question. And then other people raise their hands long after you had your hand up, and all their questions get answered while your hand is still up there unanswered, unrecognized. That's a form of dehumanization. And when you call the professor on it, you're told that the lights were out and it was dark and they couldn't see you. When in fact the lights were on, and even if they weren't on, what does that mean? That means what? If you wore a short sleeve shirt and you put your black arm up, that you're liable not to get your question answered because you're invisible. So these kind of things were happening then, and they might still be happening now. I don't experience them like I used to. Maybe because of the way that I dress, the way that I walk, the way that I carry myself. To some extent, I have solved my problem of invisibility. But that doesn't mean it can't happen again, because it certainly can. Anytime you're looking to get some services from someone. So all that to say that this particular series, we called it Real Talk, because we're going to talk about some real things as opposed to some fake things, some fairy tales. We coming with the real talk. So keep on tuning in. We're going to keep on telling stories. We're going to keep on sharing stories, other people's stories as well. And hopefully you'll share some of your thoughts and stories with us as well. You can share them online. If you're watching on Facebook, you can share them online through our YouTube channel. You can share them online via our website, or if you're on Facebook, you can share them there as well. Meanwhile, the other thing we'd like you to go ahead and share tonight are some cash funds. We're asking everybody out there within the sound of my voice to go ahead and make a donation to Black Facts Educational Research, so we can keep on bringing you these stories, so we can keep on telling these stories, and so we can keep on remembering from whence we've come, so that we can go forward into the future in a whole different way than we experienced the past. At least that's our hope. So if you have that same hope, go ahead and make your donation now. You can do it on Facebook. Just look for the coins next to our profile picture. Click the profile picture, and it'll take you to a donation page. You can go to our website, There's a link on YouTube, takes you right to the website page. You can make a donation over there. In the meanwhile, we'd like to say to all you little children out there that have been watching diligently, it's time to take your little head and lay it on your little pillow, on your little bed, while you close those your eyes and wait on that sun to rise. And when you feel those sunbeams beaming down on your eyes, you'll know that it's time for you to rise and shine, old chillin' of mine. Because we're waiting to see each and every one of y'all shine like stars in the sky. In the meanwhile, we're just going to say goodbye, Tuta Nana, see you later. We'll be black tomorrow at noon. Look for us then, because we're going to be black real soon. As we say good night to Robert Wilkes and everybody else out there who has been listening to our stories. Peace out without a doubt, with plenty of justice, because anything less disgusts us.